In the United States, traditional agriculture is having severe problems. Productivity has outstripped demand as production costs and interest rates have soared. Meanwhile, exports have dwindled as third world countries with cheaper labor have begun to compete effectively. In the Northeast, agriculture faces additional pressure from development. As land values grow, property taxes rise. Of course, this gives the farmer in the Northeast an option that farmers elsewhere may not have. They can sell out. Of the 8 counties in the Hudson Valley, 83 farmers recently chose to sell their herds under the new dairy termination program. Yet, with each real estate sale, tillable land within reach of the nation's great urban markets is lost. With it disappears another chance for consumers to buy a fresh variety of produce. As a traditional breadbasket for New York City, the Hudson Valley is facing transition. In the 19th century, at every landing along the Hudson River, staples such as fresh milk, vegetables, and fruits were collected to be shipped to New York City on the night sloop. Today, farmers are exploring niches based on the proximity to the world's greatest luxury market. Farmers are also responding to consumers' increasing awareness of health. More Americans have been to Europe, where they've enjoyed fruit, vegetables, cheese, and wine, finer than what our food production system stocks in our supermarkets. More Americans also care about freshness.
We have seen a lot of the local chefs, the people down in New York City, looking for the locally grown products, fresh products.
The public is tired of big red apples. They want apples that have wonderful texture and great flavor.
They're looking for healthier food, they're looking for a healthier lifestyle. And there's definitely a trend towards fresher. And there's also definitely a trend towards the grown in New York.
The notion that we were 2 hours outside of the world's largest market for anything was exciting. And
the supermarkets don't have any idea what to do with local chef. They haven't got any idea what to do with local produce at all.
Today, some farmers are turning from traditional agriculture to raising gourmet specialties. But this change is not without its risks. The specialty market can be demanding, even fickle.
The problems are that it's a luxury item. And one of the disadvantages of that is if the economics aren't good, and the times are bad, why, you kind of lose your markets, you lose your customers.
Delicate products do not adapt well to machines. Niche agriculture tends to be labor-intensive, which is costly to both producer and consumer. Niche farmers are a diverse lot. Their farms range from 15 acres to 5,000. Among them are the traditional family farmer, the leisure farmer, and the groundbreaking pioneers of the future. What they share is a determination to adapt to changing times, a determination to harvest the opportunities that rise as urbanization approaches. Annie Farrell produces miniature vegetables on 22 acres of her 50-acre farm in Bovina, New York. Small vegetables must be harvested by hand in the pink of their infancy.
It has to be perfect. It has to be delicate and small. And it has to be packed in a beautiful way. Half of the sales and half of the marketing is in the presentation. But people are going to have to get off the tractor, I'm afraid, and do some hand labor. And I will tell you right now that it's difficult to find people who are willing to make that change.
The mescaloon, an assortment of small greens, herbs, and edible flowers, is especially popular with chefs around the country. Fred Battenfield's grandfather switched from growing apples to raising flowers on his farm near Red Hook. Today, this fourth-generation family business combines the wholesaling of an acre of anemones with the retailing of 65 acres of Christmas trees. The 3 owners, Dick Battenfield, his son Fred, and Clifford Platt, work at a number of different jobs during the year.
I'm putting on fertilizer here on these plants at the moment, and this has to be done manually. Fertilizer can't be put through our regular irrigating system, because they're ooze tubes, and it plugs the tubes up.
In addition, the Battenfields employ 2 people permanently and 6 or 7 part-time. Miles and Lillian Kahn own 600 acres in Pine Plains, but use less than 300 to operate their goat dairy. Their goal at Coach Farm is to produce a fine farmstead goat cheese. It is painstaking work that requires a careful eye and hand.
It'll always be an expensive product, and it just would have to be by, by virtue of the cost of the milk to begin with, and by virtue of the fact that it's a handmade cheese. Now, that's another thing I didn't explain. The difference between extruding curd out of the bottom of a tank or ladling it gently into these molds is a completely different texture, and along with a different texture, a different quality and flavor. And if you come back and see them when they're working here, it's done very slowly, and you would say, gee, I could do that quicker. But the idea is not to break up the curd. I think we're overstaffed at times, and then suddenly we're understaffed because help is hard. It's hard to deal with. Even this area, the price of land is going up so high that people can't afford to stay here, and so that there's a shortage of skilled and capable and people with the right work ethic.
Of the farms in the Hudson Valley region that specialize in fresh-killed poultry, one, Commonwealth Enterprises, also makes foie gras. It started when Howard Joseph and Izzy Yana spotted a niche.
Oh, basically there was nothing fresh in this country.
Right.
And the only thing that's coming in now from basically France is a semi-cooked or a canned product. And once you've cooked the product in that fashion, it loses a lot of the texture.
Joseph's and Yane bought a 100-acre farm in Sullivan County. They used 20 acres to raise ducks and geese. This business, too, requires careful processing by hand.
And basically the Hudson Valley, because of its being very close to our major market, which is the New York market, it's not it is still the largest market because of the fine restaurants and the just varied number of people here. It's proximity for that. It's proximity also for getting the equipment we needed, and also the land up here was basically reasonable at the time. It's getting more expensive right now. We also found some banks who were interested in going in and financing the venture, and the labor force up here was, at least in Sullivan County, is still pretty good.
On Quattro Farm in Pleasant Valley, poultry is also raised, but compared to Commonwealth Enterprises, it is more of a family operation. Duck, geese, turkey, pheasant, and capon, over 2,000 birds yearly, are raised by Frank and Camilla Quattro, their 2 sons, and 2 full-time employees. When slaughtering, another 2 to 4 people come in part-time. A wholesaler buys the down.
Everything we sell is fresh. That's what we do here. They can get frozen a lot of different places, but you can't get fresh all over.
They have to have a lot of room. They need big pens. You know, you can hatch 40, 50,000, but you gotta have big pens to put them in.
Of their 132 acres, only a third is fenced for pens. On the rest of the land, the Quattros spread manure and grow apples, peaches, plums, and apricots. If the fruit is not sold retail, it's fed back to the poultry. At Breezy Hill Farm, however, all of the fruit is eaten by people who appreciate unusual foods. Elizabeth Ryan and Peter Zimmerman bought their 35-acre farm in Dutchess County because it still contained early varieties of fruit trees which are today considered exotic.
In point of fact, we have trouble selling our Macintosh, our Romes, and our Red Delicious. Our customers don't want those. They think those apples are boring. They want something that they can't get in the supermarket.
Long hours and heavy work go into running a non-traditional orchard. The Ryans have been quick to pick up and rehabilitate antiquated machinery that can save them labor. For example, they make pear cider with a small press designed for steam power 100 years ago. They also save on sprays because the old varieties have more natural resistance to pests. Breezy Hill produces 35 varieties of apples on 35 acres, along with 6 varieties of pears, plus jam and cider. At Millbrook Vineyard in Columbia County, former New York State Commissioner of Agriculture John Dyson is working to develop a classical red wine suited to the Hudson Valley.
You take a farm that's 130 acres and you start planting grapes on it. What you find is that a lot of the land disappears in roads and in ponds and in parts that are too steep to plant, and some woods. So we'll end up with about 60 acres of planted vineyard out of the 130. 60 acres doesn't sound like much if you're growing wheat or corn, but 60 acres of grapes, when you think there are 1,000 plants an acre, and each one of them has to be pruned, and each one of them has to be tied, and each one of them has to be thinned, is a terrific amount of hand work. And on that 60 acres, we will have 7 or 8 full-time employees and another 10 or 15 in the summertime.
Developing a local wine is not only labor-intensive, but capital-intensive.
Well, in a way, it's been a crazy gamble. We have undertaken this project knowing only a little bit. The first acre we planted, we sort of held our breath, and it grew, and then we've now got almost $1 million invested here, which is a terrific gamble, when really we don't have other people to follow. So what I hope, of course, is that we will end up being the example that other people can follow, and they will come here, and we'll tell them everything there is that we know about and have learned the hard way about how to grow these grapes and how to make the wine from them. But what I hope is that we'll end up with several hundred wineries here in the Hudson Valley, like they are now in Napa Valley. We're about at the stage where they were immediately after World War II. So I think the Hudson Valley is just in a renaissance, really, of its grape business. We were the first viticultural area in the United States.